Now, the Jaguars had a very interesting free agency. They went out there and spent a ton of money on a bunch of different players. Now, how well did the Jaguars do and how well were they fare in 2022 and beyond is yet to be seen, but in this video, we'll talk about it. Now, before I get into this video, I do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Manscaped. Now, Manscaped is the best in men's below the waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision engineered tools for your family jewels. And I want to talk today about Manscaped's Performance Package 4.0, which is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. It essentially comes with a lawnmower 4.0, which is an LED lit, also waterproof, so you can do it in the shower to kind of shave your lower extremities and also your face if you choose to do so. It also comes with a weed whacker, which is an ear and nose trimmer. Also comes with a couple of ball deodorants, the crop preserver, also a ball toner with the crop reviver. And finally, it comes with some anti-chafing boxer briefs and finally a travel bag. Now, you can get this whole entire bundle from myself using my promo code UCFJ. You can get 20% off your order as well as free shipping. So if you guys want to get yourself something nice or somebody else when it comes to actual below the waist hygiene, hair trimming, definitely use that promo code. It'll do yourself some good and also do the channel some good. So shout out to Manscaped for sponsoring this video. And with all that said, let's get into the content. Now, Jaguars 2022 free agency has a lot of mixed reviews, to say the least. Now, there's a good reports about it, and there's also a bad opinions about it. Now, the Jaguars went out there and signed 7 pretty notable free agents. There was right guard Brandon Sheriff that kind of kicked off free agency. Then they went out and signed wide receiver Christian Kirk, also wide receiver Zay Jones later that day, linebacker Foye Oluokun, defensive tackle Foley Fatukasi, cornerback Darius Williams, and tight end Evan Ingram. Now, there's different ways you can look at this. I think everybody went into this free agency saying the Jaguars need to spend money. We need to go out there and get some players. But when it comes to that, there's 2 different ways you can do it. You can be the Jaguars where you go out there and you bring in a bunch of guys, like 7 guys, or there's the way the Raiders did it, where the Raiders went out and made a trade for Devontae Adams and signed him to a mega deal, making him by far the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. Or they also brought in Chandler Jones in free agency, which was the highest rated pass rusher available in free agency. Or you can do it the Jaguars way, where they kind of spread it out, went out there and signed some top of the market guys, but guys that are relatively unproven for the most part. Now, here's the thing. The Jaguars, they need to get better. They need to get better. They were 3-14 last year. They just weren't a good team. And I guess the fortunate thing about it is that probably the roster was not the worst part about the team. It's probably coaching, because Urban Meyer was absolutely terrible. But at the end of the day, 3-14, good rosters do not do that, and the Jaguars definitely did not have a good roster. Now, how do you get better from 3-14? You cannot rely on just one draft class. You're going to have to go out there and spend money. So it was nice seeing the Jaguars actually go out there and be proactive and do that, because in 2021 free agency, the Jaguars really didn't. The Jaguars clogged up some major holes for some day 2, day 3 free agents. This time around, the Jaguars were getting really the highest ranked guys available at their position, which was nice to see, because obviously there's a whole trust the rebuild movement. There's that whole viewpoint where it's like, okay, we'll go through this rebuild, we'll keep doing it. But guess what? I made this argument with people, guys. We are in year 3 of the rebuild. 2020, I don't care what anybody says. 2020, we cut bait with everybody. We had 2 first-round picks. All that stuff happened. So that was year 1 of the rebuild. Last year was year 2. Year 3 of the rebuild, I mean, time to start getting some wins. And I think this was the first step in doing that. Now, the big guy that made a lot of headlines was wide receiver Christian Kirk, and this was because he signed a huge deal. It was a 4-year, $72 million deal, and it kind of broke the market at the time. But we were in an awkward position when it comes to that, because the Jaguars 100% needed to spend money at wide receiver. We needed to get better at that position because the talent in that wide receiver room is pretty bare. Now, unfortunately, before free agency actually opened, guys like Chris Godwin were signed, Mike Williams were signed, Devontae Adams, obviously. The Raiders traded for him, but the only place he wanted to go to was Las Vegas, so the Jaguars probably could have gone in there and said, hey, do this. He probably said, no, I'm staying with Green Bay. So it was pretty much Las Vegas 1, Green Bay 2 for him, so there's no way we could have gotten him. And then there's Michael Gallup. So it kind of left the market with guys like Christian Kirk or like Allen Robinson, Odell Beckham Jr. still out there, but Christian Kirk with his age at 25 and, with the attitude of the kind of player that he is, it seemed like this was probably the best fit for the Jaguars. So this was the guy that the Jaguars spent a lot of money on. And with Christian Kirk, what the Jaguars need to do with this guy is, obviously he signed wide receiver 1 money, but in my eyes, he's not a wide receiver 1. He's a wide receiver 2. He's a slot guy that can play on the outside. So the Jaguars, what they need to do, they cannot force him to be a wide receiver 1. They cannot say, okay, you're our best receiver. You're going to be that guy that does all this different crazy stuff, because he can only do so many things. So the Jaguars, they need to continue to use him to his strengths and not force him into a role that he can't play. That's kind of what went bad for him in Arizona. And that's kind of what annoyed him in Arizona, is because they tried to make him fit a role that he couldn't do. So if we use Christian Kirk right, that's a good signing. Now, the big thing that I didn't like and a lot of people didn't like was the signing of Zay Jones. They gave him a 3-year deal, $14 million guaranteed. And basically, he's kind of an average receiver. 6-year career, only 500 yards twice, and that came in 2018 and 2021. So all the other years he's been kind of below average. And I think the Jaguars jumped the gun on this one. The Jaguars could have waited, seen the way the free agency market worked out, and went and got a guy. If we waited, the Titans went out and got Robert Woods for a 6th-round pick. I think we'd be feeling a lot better about our wide receiver room right now if instead of Zay Jones and Christian Kirk, if it was Robert Woods and Christian Kirk, especially because Robert Woods is a guy that you can move all around as well. But the Jaguars went out there and got Zay Jones. I guess they like his upside. I don't know. He's about to start his 7th NFL season. I don't know if he's all of a sudden going to explode on the scene, but we'll see. Hopefully the Jaguars can get the best out of him. And one guy that's being overshadowed right now is the fact that is Brandon Sheriff. Because Brandon Sheriff, in his 7-year NFL career, he's made 5 Pro Bowls, and he was a 2020 All-Pro. When you look at and the big knock on him, obviously, is availability. He's been getting injured. 2019, 11 games. 2020, 13 games. 2021, 11 games. But even the cool thing about this is, despite all of his injuries, he's still making Pro Bowls. He's still going out there and having pretty big impact places. So, that's all good to see. And Brandon Sheriff, he fills an immediate hole at right guard, and he upgrades that spot. Now, I don't know a lot about his background with his injuries. I'll be honest. I don't know if it's just a lingering thing. I don't know. But hopefully this guy can, get it right and figure it out. Because if you can get this guy for a full 17-game season, damn, that's a really, really good pickup. And talk about getting an upgrade on your offensive line. You went out there and probably got the most proven when healthy and the best when healthy offensive lineman available in free agency. So big move on that. One of my favorite moves was the Jaguars signing tight end Evan Ingram. He's a guy that has tons of potential. He's on a 1-year prove-it deal. I think it was like a 1-year $8 to $12 million deal. I should have the numbers written down, but honestly, guys, money really isn't super important for me right now, just because the Jaguars have a lot of it. And look, they can make the cap work. That's all I'm going to say. But I think Evan Ingram, he has athleticism. Now, I think he's going to be much less of a tight end, more of like a big receiver. And I think if there's anybody that knows how to use tight ends, it is Doug Peterson. So you bring a guy in here, 1 year prove it deal. He leaves behind the baggage that he had in New York because it's the Taven Bryan effect. You know, I mean, he was a first round pick, so expectations are so much higher for him, and he's always held to that standard. But now that Taven Bryan is in Cleveland, you know, he doesn't have that. He's just a random guy they signed to a 1 year deal. That's the same thing with Evan Ingram here. If Evan Ingram doesn't do very well here, you know, he's on a 1 year deal, so he's out of here. So there's a ton of upside. You know, a lot of Giants fans will, you know, not many Giants fans have good things to say about him because he did have an issue with drops, but he's a guy like I really like the kind of potential that he brings to the team. A lot of athleticism, and pairing him up with Dan Arnold, you know, I think that's a good 1 year thing to kind of work out and kind of see where you can upgrade with the tight end room, whether it be in free agency this year or even next year. We'll see. So a big question is, why did the Jaguars need to sign all these guys? Because really, it's crazy. There's a report that came out that, GMs are really unhappy with Trent Baalke because of the way he's just spending money in free agency. And I'm sitting here like, you're mad at him for why? What? Is there some kind of rule where it's like, you can only spend up to this amount? Look, you're being outbidded because the Jaguars have a lot of money. So I wouldn't be complaining too much. But really, when I look at this, I think this whole entire free agency class is a microcosm of how bad the 2020 draft class was. And the 2020 draft class doesn't get talked about a lot with how bad it was because so much has happened since then. Obviously, 2020 happened where you tanked 1-15, tanked for Trevor. You got Trevor. Then Urban Meyer came in, all the optimism around Trevor Lawrence and how you're going to build the offense around him. Then the Urban Meyer fiasco went down where it was just a terrible season. You know, every week it was something new with Urban Meyer, from missing a plane to being in Cincinnati to not knowing anybody in the NFL, especially with the crazy report that came out today. All this stuff went on, and then him getting fired, and then the interim thing went on, and then you go out there and the clown movie when Trent Baalke gets thrown out there, the Doug Peterson, yada, yada, all this, and now, you know, free agency. But if you take a step back, that 2020 draft class, they should be going into year 3, some of their best years. But when you look at that class, number 9 overall pick, CJ Henderson, is no longer on a team. If CJ Henderson is a good player, you don't have to sign a guy like Darius Williams at cornerback. You look at Kayvon Chason, our second first-round pick. If he works out well, maybe you're not as all in on Aiden Hutchinson at number 1. If, you know, you second-round pick Laviska Shenault has not worked out, and that's a big reason why you sign a slot receiver to a 4-year, $72 million deal. Even Devon Hamilton in the 3rd round, you know, he hasn't been super living up to expectations, so you bring in Foley Fatukasi in there at nose tackle. So there's a lot of stuff, guys, that if all those picks hit at those positions, those are 4 guys you don't need to sign. And maybe you go bundle up more money and go, I don't know, maybe you do get risky and make a trade. You know, there's all kinds of things that you can do. But in this case, obviously it was a case of how bad the 2020 draft class is. And when you look in the future, when you look at the 2019 draft class, the only player worth a crap that's worth re-signing is Josh Allen. But the Jaguars have a 5th-year option on him. So you slap the 5th-year option on him, and there's nobody from that draft class that you feel a need to resign. But we can talk about bad drafts all day, guys. It was definitely a fun signing. I had a lot of fun this free agency, man. I was looking down on my phone. We were getting a new player like every hour. We added a lot of different players to this team. The GM actually spent money, so credit to Trent Baalke for doing that. But there's still, even though you add 7 high-profile guys, and really this free agency really did put perspective for myself and really realize how weak this roster was. Because you added 7 guys to this team. You know, there's 22 players. There's 22 starting players on the team. You add 7 guys. So what, that's about 35 to 40% potentially new starters on this team. You know, you add that amount of people, and it still feels like we have a lot of holes, doesn't it? And when I look at this, there's still a lot of position groups in question. I feel good about our defensive backfield, and that's about the only thing I feel really, really good about. At cornerback, you have Shaquille Griffin. Second-year cornerback, Tyson Campbell. Obviously, you signed Darius Williams over from the Rams. Jacksonville guy. He actually went to school at Creekside High School, which is cool. Safety, Andre Sisco and Rayshawn Jenkins. I think that's a really good back five. Now, the linebackers, huge question mark. You no longer have Miles Jack and Damian Williams, both of your starters from 2021. Both of them are gone. We'll see what Aluakin can do, and we'll see what the heck. I don't know who's at the other linebacker spot. Is it Shaq Quarterman? Is it even Dylan Moses? Is he coming back healthy and good? We'll see. The defensive line, once they bring in Aiden Hutchinson, it feels solid. And what we got to hope is that Aiden Hutchinson can really maximize the ability of Josh Allen, because Josh Allen, since his rookie year, he's fallen off. And has he fallen off because in his rookie year he had Yannick Ngakoue and Calais Campbell with him? And then the last 2 years, he's been really the only big threat, pass rushing threat on that defensive line. Maybe you bring in Aiden Hutchinson and it helps free up Josh Allen a little bit. So hopefully that's a twofold effect. Now the offensive line, huge question marks for me still. Huge question marks. I mean, you franchise tag left tackle Cam Robinson. He's going to play there next year. You know, he's going to play there, but what happens after that? I don't know. Will the Jaguars work out a new deal? I don't know. And I think that puts Walker Little at right tackle, and then it demotes Jawan Taylor to be kind of a swing backup tackle. And then on your interior, obviously right guard Brandon Scherf, that's a home run hit there. That's an obvious one. But what are you going to do at center and left guard? You have Ben Barch. He played right guard last year. Maybe he moves over to left guard. But now you have this talk about Brandon Linder potentially retiring. I hope Trent Baalke is begging Brandon Linder to come back. I really do, because obviously you have Tyler Shatley, but Linder is better than Tyler Shatley. And I hope for at least one more year we can get Brandon Linder. I know he gets hurt, but we have that handcuff with Tyler Shatley. So that's what I'm hoping. So still question marks along the offensive line, and we probably won't be able to address it until around the third round, because obviously pick number 33, please get a wide receiver, please. We all want a guy like George Pickens. We need a true number one, and that's the only place where we're really be able to find one. So that's a big one right there. So which conveniently enough brings us over to wide receiver position. Christian Kirk is a clear upgrade, great player. If you let him do what he does best and not force him into a role that he can't do, I think he's going to flourish with the Jaguars, but it's all about we need to find more talent. You know, Zay Jones does not fill a huge hole for us. It brings another guy in there, but it doesn't fill a hole. Can Laviska Shenault do better? We signed Laquan Treadwell. Hopefully Agnew comes back good, because I think Agnew can be a really good wide receiver 3, but we need that wide receiver 1 so bad. And hopefully there's a guy there at number 33 overall that can do that. And then tight end and running back room, I'm fine with at the moment. I know there's some, look, I know especially with Travis Etienne and James Robinson, they're both hurt. Look, if they're both hurt later on, go in there and just sign a free agent. I don't really care. Like, you can find those guys. Raekwon Armstead, let him play. I'm not too worried about spending a lot of capital there. So that was the 2022 free agency class. I think later on, maybe next week or something, I'll make a video really talking about every player that we let walk, every player that we signed, really go through the roster and kind of give you guys updates player by player. This was more of a, let's take a step back, look at it from a broad standpoint. I'm not Mr. Oh, I'd give this one a B minus. This one, that's not me. I like to do this more conversational for you guys, because this is a conversation. This isn't just cookie cutter. Here's my list, move on to the next one, because it's a story. Yeah, I mean, there's a story, there's a method behind all this madness, and I like to talk about it that way. So let me know what you guys all think about the Jaguars free agency class. I know it's exciting. We signed a bunch of players, but now, we move on to the draft, and it's going to be obviously an extremely important draft. It feels like the 2021 draft class was pretty good. If we can get another banger of a draft class out here, then that would be nice. So with all that said, thank you guys for watching the video. Definitely use my promo code for Manscaped. It would really help me out a lot if you guys could show me support over there. And with all that said, drop a like on the video. I'll be doing my Duval Vibes podcast with Tom McManus and Jordan DeLugo tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Relevant app. So go download Relevant app and join me over there. And with all that said, Go Jags. You guys watched the whole video. Really appreciate that. You guys can subscribe to the channel for the best source of Jaguars news on the YouTube platform. Also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at UCF_Jaguar. And you can become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month for exclusive channel content. Thank you guys, and go Jags.